What's going on, everybody? Thanks for coming back for another episode of Recovery with Rah. Alright, this episode is a little difficult for me to speak on for the simple fact of the topic. The topic is actually, I was going to do it anyway, but it was actually requested from one of my viewers, and I figured, you know what, let me try to get into it the best I can, but you'll understand once you see what the topic is. I got an email from one of the viewers, and she asked, can you make a video regarding, how a family member can help, or pretty much family member do's and don'ts when it comes to dealing with somebody that's going through drug addiction. And for me, I can think in my head of a bunch of things as far as like do's and don'ts, but I could think of it from the perspective of the addict. I was able to understand now a little bit more going through recovery of why, family, friends, or whoever did what they did. But as far as, family do's and don'ts, I did a little bit of research along with my own personal advice. But the best and probably the most important two things that I can come up with, and I made a list. Normally I freestyle most of this. I don't really write it down, I just go with the flow. But this one I felt I should probably write a little bit down and try to get the most I can out of it. I'm sure there's more to it, but I tried to cover the main topics. And I came up with a decent sized list. But the major things that I can think of is, number one, you can't change somebody else. You can't force someone to change. So no matter how much you tell the person you hate seeing them that way, you want them to do better, you keep hearing, oh, I want to change, but you don't see the person that is actually going through the drug addiction and the process. They take that in a way where it's either it comes off as nagging, or it comes off as I'm trying, I know, I can't help it. It becomes stressful, it becomes repetitive, it puts them in a state of depression, it becomes more weight than, it becomes more of a negative than it really, is intended to be a positive. So my best advice as far as that topic is to really just stay out of the way, because there's nothing you can do to stop someone from doing what they're going to do. However, the two things that I would suggest is to not only stay out of the way, but don't put yourself in a position where you're enabling the person. Don't give that person the feeling of, okay, I understand you're going through a tough time, and help them. When they're sick and withdrawing, you're giving them money so they can feed their habit because you don't want to see them sick, or, all, what enabling is, letting someone do what they're not supposed to be doing and feeding into their addiction. That's one of the biggest things. I would also suggest to, timing is very important, but I would definitely suggest to make sure that you let the person know that you're supportive and you're there for them no matter what. But don't just bring it up. It has to be natural. It has to be organic. You know, you can't just come out of nowhere and be like, yeah, I'm here for you if you need anything, you know, just out of nowhere, because it makes people think like, what was that about, you know? And then once the brain starts going, most of us that are in those stages automatically don't know how to deal with those things, and it gets us right to, let me go find something to use. So I made a little list here, and it's not in any particular order. It's just a quick list of things that I think are pretty good. So let me go through it. I put on here to learn as much as you can about addiction. Being a family member, a roommate, a friend, whatever, a sponsor, a person that's affected by it, someone that's dealing with it, a support system member, whoever, somebody that's dealing with it, educate yourself. It's very important to know what you're talking about. If you're that shoulder to cry on, or if you're the enabler, you have to learn how to not be that person. There's so many topics that you can educate yourself on. Talk to people that have been down that road. You could go online and search these things. There's tons of different ways to educate yourself. And there's not only one way to do things. There's a bunch of different ways to get to the same destination. So whatever works for you. I also put talk to your peers for advice or answers, even online. It's pretty much the same thing. Okay, so let's go, and it says number 3, I put try to make it as stress-free as possible for the person that's going through the addiction. Don't become a trigger. Okay, that's really important, because when the person already has enough stress on their plate as it is, and when you add to that stress, that's just another reason to use. That's how they interpret it, that's how they receive it. And a trigger is something, for those of you that don't know what a trigger is, it's kind of that green light, you know. It gives them the reason to, it's kind of like the rationalization as far as why they're going to go use. It's what causes them to make them feel like, okay, I need it right now. So that's what that's about. 4, family therapy sessions, with or without the addict. It can help drastically. Even if the people don't want to go to therapy, you can still go to family therapy without the addict, and there are professionals out there that can tell you a whole bunch of different techniques and methods and what to look out for, and they have it. I forgot what it's called, but there's a whole group dedicated to just that. Number 5, don't expect the addict to be cured, fixed, normal again if they decide to go into a detox, a rehab, or go away, because relapse, it's very common, and it takes a lot of times for someone. It's a mentality thing. It's a whole lifestyle change. They have to really want it. You know, it's not like some magic place or a magic pill that they go in and they come out and all of a sudden everything's great. It's a whole process. So it's not going to just happen where they go in for 5 days to a detox and come out, you know, clean on the other side. It doesn't work that way. So, you know, don't get your hopes up and think that that's going to fix everything. It takes a lot of effort and desire and commitment and a whole lifestyle change, a whole mental. They have to get to the core of the problem. There's a lot more to it than what it looks like on the outside. Number 6, I already said, don't enable, but I can't stress that one enough. It's such a big one. Okay, number 7. This is a big one for you guys. don't forget about yourself. You see, I see a lot of family members stressing themselves out, blaming themselves. Where did I go wrong? What did I do? You know, you can't blame yourself. Sometimes it has nothing to do with you. The person that's an addict could live a perfect life, just like me. Like, it had nothing to do with family or anything like that. So you can't take it out on you. And on top of that, you have to kind of be strong so you could set the example so that they could see that people can function without it, and little by little it will start to click if the person does decide that they do want to get clean and, you know, recover. And, you know, you got to understand, it is what it is at a certain point. There's only so much you can do. You know, you don't want to destroy yourself. You have to be able to be strong so that if the person does want to open up to you, they can, and you can handle it. Don't destroy yourself because somebody you love is destroying themselves. You know, you have to be strong. 8, attend meetings with your loved ones. For example, if you know, some of your loved ones are going to AA or NA or whatever, anonymous, go with them. It shows support. You can get educated. It shows commitment. It shows, you know, willingness, and that you accept everything and you're trying to understand, and you're trying just as much as they are, and you're rooting for them. You're in their corner. It's very nice to have a support system, and you know, it's a lot easier when you have people caring for you. It's more weight on the shoulders of the person, but it's that much more of a reason for the person to do well. Number 9, acknowledge when they do good or talk about wanting to stop. And don't push it, you know. Offer your assistance if they need it as a reminder, but make sure it's understood that you got their back no matter what. You know, even if they fail, explain, you know, they're human. It happens. Just make sure you get back up and dust yourself off and keep going. Keep going, keep going. Just try to stay positive. It's hard. Even if you have to put the poker face on and hold back those tears and those emotions, you know, try to be strong, because, you know, something you say might wear off and it might click. You know, they might not hear you the first 100 times, but maybe the next time you say it, you know, timing is everything. They might be at a certain point in their life where it finally starts to make sense. So it's definitely very important. Number 10, don't threaten, especially if it's a bluff. Like, for example, if you say, like a parent, if you say to your addicted child, like, if you don't fix your ways, you know, you got to get out of this house. Especially if you're the parent, knowing you're not going to kick them out of the house, because they will test you. They will do whatever they say. They'll be like, you know what, you want me out of this house? Fine, I'm out. You know, and you know what? You guys were the only reason I wasn't even worse than what I am now. And they'll leave, and now you'll be the one trying to tell them, no, don't leave. And it'll just make it way worse than it is. So, you know, I wouldn't threaten. That's not the way to go about it. It's only going to make things worse. If you do need to kick them out of the house, then you need to kick them out of the house, but don't threaten, because that's not going to work. Either do it or don't. Also, if you have a serious talk, make sure when you're talking to that person that they're in the closest mind state to sober that there is. You can't have a serious talk with someone that's intoxicated. It's just not going to happen. It's like talking to a brick wall. It's going to cause nothing but arguments. they're going to be taking it the wrong way. Everything's going to get misinterpreted. They're going to feel defensive, like everyone's attacking them, and that's not the way to do it. You have to remind them that you're not the enemy. You have to remind them that the addiction or whatever is the drugs are the enemy, and that you're on their side. You know, you guys are trying to fight this together. Tell them, tell me how to help you. Every situation is different. Help me help you, you know? So you have to understand and make it known that you're on their side, you're not the enemy. Also, this is another one. If you have to, call the police. Don't be afraid to call the police on your kid or whoever the person it is that's affected, because you know you feel bad, you know, you're locking up your child or whoever, but you might be preventing something which in a few minutes later could be a lot worse, possibly fatal, possibly something that they could never take back again. So let them go to jail. Let them sober down. They might hate you for it for a little while, but in the long run, it might be for the best. You know? Sometimes things are just too out of control, and you need to put your foot down and step in. You just got to do it. And once that person hopefully reaches recovery, they will understand. And you need to explain to them, but this is, you know, when they hit the recovery part, that you forgive them. Even now, you got to explain that you forgive them. You know that this is not the real you. But like I said, timing is very important. You can't say it. It's got to be organic. It's got to be at the right time, you know? So, this also goes with something I was thinking about. Don't cover up for them. You know, they need to face the consequences. Like, each time, little by little, it'll sink in and it'll hit them closer and closer to rock bottom. Rock bottom is extremely important to get the addict closer and closer to the mind state of recovery. It's very important, because the more and more and more and more they keep hitting the floor and hitting the floor and hitting the floor, it's gonna eventually sink in like, wow, look at what it's doing to my life. And at some point, it's gonna be, you know, the straw that broke the camel's back, and they're gonna have enough of it, and that's when the change is gonna occur. Some people, unfortunately, they just never want to change, and those are the people that, you know, it's very rare, but there are some people like that they just don't want to change. They're okay with living like this for the rest of their life, and those people, you just gotta accept it for what it is. Nothing you could do. You could just pray for the best, but you know, you want to try to think positive. You always want to try to be positive, you know. You have to definitely be patient. Patience is so important when you're dealing with this, because it's years of addiction, years of struggle and trauma and ups and downs and all that stuff. So, you know, don't single them out. Don't place blame. You know, addiction's hard enough. You know, they don't need that extra. It's because of you. It's because of you that they don't need that, you know, because all that's gonna do is make them go use. You know, they need like a nurturing, not enabling. They need a nurturing. And sometimes, getting into my next topic, is tough love. You know, sometimes they need tough love, man. If you haven't tried that before, you can try that approach if you haven't. Even if you have, you know, it's good to mix it up, to show them that you're getting tired of it as well, but not in a nagging way. It's got to be the right time. Once again, timing is very important. Maybe after something drastic happens, each attempt to get clean is different than the last, because of where the person is at on their life as far as like their life timeline. Their mental state is different, their situation is different, their position in life is different, and you have to just wait until the person's had enough, you know. And one last thing I could really say, well, there's a couple things I could say, but I don't want to go on too long. As far as family members, definitely hide your valuables, put them in safes, hide them, store them, because the person that's addicted is not the real people that you know and love. You know, they will steal your stuff and pawn them and do what they need to do to get their fix, you know. So make sure you hide all of that stuff, and make sure if things are missing, and, you know, call them out on it if you have to. They'll deny it, but eventually they will usually fess up to it in the long run. And you do what you gotta do. Don't be afraid to do what you gotta do. Like I said with the police thing, where, you know, it might be the reality check that they need, you know. You can also make a list of things you noticed that they lost from the addiction, so that if you do things like therapy or interventions, you can speak on it, and it's almost like ammunition to help them realize that they need to change their ways. But it's not intended to be thrown in their face, it's just to show them how it's affecting you or whoever it's affecting. And, you know, these are just some of the things. There's many different things you could do. You know, this is just the list that I came up with. You know, I've done a lot of things that I regret. I wish I could take it back, but you also have to forgive yourself as the addict. It's very important. You have to forgive yourself, or else you will never totally get past it if you can't forgive yourself. You know, it says family first on my arm. This is my first and only tattoo so far. Family is so important to me, but I've done them very wrong because I always knew they had my back. So it's just, you gotta make sure you let the person know you're always there for them, and that you're not gonna give up on them. That's it. It's very important. I'm sure there's a million other do's and don'ts, but that was pretty much my list of do's and don'ts. There was maybe like 18 to 20 points. I stopped counting. I just started, you know, kind of listing. If you know of any do's and don'ts, you can put them in the comments and stuff like that. If you think anything I said you want to add to it, feel free, add it in the comments. Also, if you think something I'm saying is wrong, you know, every situation is different. You gotta understand it's circumstantial, so you gotta kind of feel it and go with your gut. So anyway, if you haven't up to this point, I hope you subscribed and gave it a thumbs up. And on that note, it's Ra. I'm signing off. Salute.